your source for everything paranormal. Para X. The views expressed and the opinions given by the individual host and their guests do not necessarily reflect those of Para X, its affiliates, or its sponsors.
Merry meet and merry part, bright the cheeks and warm the heart. For tread the circle thrice about, to keep unwelcome spirits out. Bide within the law you must, in perfect love and perfect trust. Mind the threefold laws you should, 3 times bad and 3 times good. These 8 words the read fulfill, and ye harm none, do what ye will.
Welcome to Stirring the Cauldron on the Para X Radio Network. And now, here's your host, Marla Brooks.
Merry meet everybody and welcome. Now tonight we're going to learn about the history, the mystery, and the magic of the quiet curse, also known as the evil eye. My guest is author Antonio Pagliarulo, and he's been a professional writer for over 2 decades and has been published in the Washington Post and the New York Daily News and several others. And he's the son of Southern Italian immigrants and was raised in a home where the magical arts were commonplace. And he was schooled in the ways of Italian folk magic, learning and collecting dozens of traditional rituals and spells and incantations for healing and prosperity and protection. And these practices, as he describes them, are both pagan and Catholic and represents the unique beauty and power of synchronized faiths. Now, anybody in the chat room that has any questions, feel free to ask during the show. And those outside the chat are always welcome at paraxradionetwork.com. And now I'm getting all choked up about the evil eye, Antonio, so step right up and welcome.
Thank you, Marla. It's a pleasure to be here.
Oh, what a book. A nice book. I mean, it's a modern day exploration of one of the oldest, most universal and storied form of folk magic. And in this day and age, it's just as scary as it was back in antiquity, I think. But can you talk a little bit about the genesis of the evil eye and did it start in Egypt? Was it Eye of Horus? And, go ahead.
Sure. So we know that it goes back at least most scholars will say it goes back at least 5,000 years. We know that it certainly goes back to ancient Egypt. Yes, the Eye of Horus, eye symbolism was painted on boats, was painted on coffins, but there are also scholars who will tell you that it goes back to, Mesopotamia, and to the eye idols that were, you can see that eye idols that were unearthed at Tel Brak. So certain incantations that were found. It's difficult to say when exactly it started, but in my opinion, because the evil eye itself is something that is ingrained within us. It starts with emotion. We talk about the evil eye, and it stems from envy, it stems from resentment, it stems from anger. And for those who don't know, let me just give you a quick rundown about the evil eye. Is a curse or negative energy that is cast via a glance, and it is born out of jealousy, envy, resentment, and it has basically, I classify it in the book as having 3 sort of ways of thinking about it. The first is intentional, and someone is just going to really be filled with those emotions and really give you a curse or that negativity intentionally because that's what they want to do. That's their intention. The second way is unintentional, and this does happen, and we can see that many cultures, when someone gives you a compliment, he's so cute, the baby's adorable, she's adorable, the house is beautiful, your promotion, many people will follow it with either God bless or some people in some cultures it's common to spit afterwards, and some it's common to knock wood. In Italian, we say toccaferro, which means, to touch iron, because that's very, very much something that wards the evil eye. So those practices are meant to, ward away the evil eye in case it somehow is cast unintentionally. And the third way, and this is something that's very much was ingrained in me as a child growing up, is that you can bring the evil eye upon yourself by boasting, by talking too much about your good plans, by talking about all those great things that are happening, all of your future positive things, and so on and so forth. And that is in a way sort of tempting fate. It's what will bring. It might cause the eye to sort of look at you and find you and smite something that you want to keep intact. But those are the ways in which I define the evil eye. And what's interesting is that it does go back into history so far, and it has survived, and it is alive and well today, as we all know. Mm-hmm. And I think the reason for that really goes back to the fact that although we think of it as this quote unquote, this supernatural concept, this energy, it really actually is something that stems from a very natural source, and that is our emotion. And those emotions can be, as I said, it's generally jealousy, it's anger, it's resentment. So we've always felt that, there wasn't a time in history where we can say, oh, well, the human race or the species started feeling jealousy at this certain time, or this is something that we were born with. So that's why I think the evil eye has survived, because it came with us, and it's not going to go anywhere.
So why is it called the sometimes quiet curse?
Well, I call it the quiet curse because over the years, growing up with, folk magic and growing up with, especially with the evil eye, over the years of research and study, and also being a practitioner myself, the evil eye to me is the quiet curse, because a glance is as quiet as you get. And a glance can be extremely dangerous when it's done, when we're talking about the evil eye, and you don't know necessarily if someone's looking at you, if someone's giving you the evil eye, and when something is quiet, it's all the more dangerous. You can't really run from it if you don't hear it. You don't know what's happening. Someone's giving you the eye, and it's really quiet. It's silent. That's very, very scary. And I define that in the book when I say most people think about, and I've been asked this question about curses in general, and some people will think about curses and they'll say, oh, someone put a curse on me, and they have images of what that entails. And it usually has a lot to do with images that we've been fed through, Hollywood movies, media. Someone gets the black candles and the graveyard dirt and, the hair and the nails. And listen, there's certainly some truth to that. Curses are cast in those ways. Mm-hmm. But a curse in that way is going to take certain steps. It's going to take certain ingredients. As I say in the book, you may have to collect your mean boss's fingernails, things like that. That's a specific kind of curse. The quiet curse, the evil eye, does not require all of that. The evil eye comes from within you. It comes from that emotion, and you're going to literally transmit it through the feelings that you have. So that's why it's the quiet curse to me, and it's, to me, the most dangerous.
Mm-hmm. Well, I got a question from the chat room along these lines. She said, if you decide to give someone an evil eye, will that have a blowback on you as in a negative way?
You mean if you decide to cast the evil eye yourself on someone? I assume that's what the question means. Yeah. And I write about this actually in What the Land. By the way, just as a side note, I live in Manhattan, so everyone's going to be able to hear sirens and horns in the background. So please forgive that.
I'm in LA, so hey, I get it, and we're okay.
You get it. We're okay. So you'll hear it. But will there be a blowback? So this goes back to the question of sort of that karmic question, or the law of karma, what you put out there, you're going to get back. In the book, the last chapter of the book, I actually discuss how to cast the evil eye. And I write about that from the point of your own ethical standpoint about whether or not you want to learn how to cast the evil eye, and there is a way to learn. Why do you want to cast the evil eye on someone? For some people, it is a justified means of self-defense. And if that's the case, as I write about it, no, I don't believe if it's a justified casting of the evil eye, no, I don't believe it comes back on you, because I write in the book that when a curse is cast upon you, okay, what happens? Your life falls out of balance. The energy is scattered. Everything falls out of balance. This goes, that goes. And if you turn the other cheek and you just sort of ignore it and you say, well, I'm going to let, time take care of it, or I'm going to let the gods take care of it, I'm going to let fate take care of it, I'm going to let karma take care of it, that's certainly your choice to do so. But in my personal opinion, and in the way I was trained as a practitioner and in the way I practice as a practitioner, turning the other cheek does not get you anywhere. It leaves an imbalance of energy. However, if you go ahead and you say, you've been attacked in a certain way, you've been attacked psychically, someone has cast the evil eye on you, their jealousy has been very, very harsh, you know it, you feel it, you see the effects of it, and you want to cast that curse back to them. And to me, in my opinion, that's creating balance in your life. That is restoring balance.
Yeah, I always say that when, you have to do a certain spell on somebody. If it's an eye for an eye, I think you're clear. You're just giving back what you're getting. And I always say that too. So, yeah.
Very much so.
That makes sense. All right. It was interesting to find out that the evil eye isn't just attached to various cultures. I mean, it's referenced in many religions as well. Jesus on the Mound and something in the Jewish books, and I mean, it's religious also, right?
Yes, you could see it in all of the major religions. You can see it in Judaism, in Christianity, in Islam, in Hinduism. Those, and I say in the book, in Bava Metzia, there's a tractate of the Talmud, the Jewish compendium of law and legend, and I believe I'm going to paraphrase it, but it said that among, in a cemetery, 99, I think he says 99 of 100 die of an evil eye. That's in the Talmud. There are Quranic verses, I believe, I believe the evil eye verses are known as 51 and 52. That can be said, for protection. So it really is across. There are mantras that are said for it. So it does go across, and of course, in Zoroastrianism, we know that there are many cleansings that are done. People I've interviewed said that the gaze of a menstruating woman was particularly dangerous when casting the evil eye. Certainly in Christianity, you can find it referenced in the Bible in several places, and that's I think it's alluded to in Christianity and in the Bible when Jesus talks about the lamp of the body. There's the parable. I'm trying to remember now what it is. It's the parable of the workers in the vineyard, where he says, are you angry at me because of jealousy? Because I have a good eye, my eye is not evil. So you can find it across every major religion, indeed. And this is because again, this goes back to the idea that it's so much a part of humanity, and it's a part of, our faith systems.
Mm-hmm. Well, something in the book reminded me of something personal that I had forgotten. So the paternal side of a family came from the UK. So English was the first language. The maternal side, the grandparents immigrated from Russia. And lots of their friends and family landed at Ellis Island, and they were elderly. And at family gatherings, most of them spoke Yiddish. And I never knew what they were talking about because I never learned. But there was one word that they used all the time that I have long forgotten until I read it in your book. found out what it really meant. And I may not be pronouncing it right, but can you explain the words kinahora?
Oh, yes, of course.
That was how did go ahead.
Kinahora, you pronounced it perfectly. Yes. No evil eye, no evil eye, no evil eye. So it's funny you mentioned Yiddish. My husband is Jewish, and so he speaks some Yiddish as well, and it's very, very familiar to me. Kinahora, when it means no evil eye, when people say that, and it's the same in the idea is the same in different cultures. There are different words that ward it away. In Islam, there's mashallah, may it be what God wills. So you can see the same sort of practice. There's a word that always goes back, or a phrase that goes back to negating the evil eye. And certainly in Yiddish, kinahara is very, very much used. And then there's the tu, the spitting of the tu, which happens as well. And certainly that happens a lot in our apartment, I can tell you.
I always thought that was Italian. I never saw any of my relatives do the tu, but it was just so funny because all of a sudden I thought, I never thought of that word for the longest time. And as a kid, you don't know, what it means, but they keep repeating it. So maybe they were trying to ward it or, just whatever. But so I mean,
you see that, a lot, and you can see the idea. I mentioned this in the book as well, and there's a section where I call spit to transmit, the power of saliva. And in many cultures, Italian, Jewish, Greek culture, the spitting is a very, very common way to ward away the evil eye, and that goes back as well. There are references made to spittle in the Bible, and it's a very, very common way, and we see it in movies. In Fiddler on the Roof, if you remember, they do the two. They also remember My Big Fat Greek Wedding.
Yeah.
She's walking down the aisle, and they're kind of on the dress. Mm-hmm. This is common, and in many parts of southern Italy, it's very common when someone gives you a compliment. And you might be a little bit suspicious, or you might feel like, well, they didn't say God bless you or something. You turn around and you spit 3 times. Mm-hmm. So
the number 3 is very popular. Yeah.
Number 3, yeah.
Yeah. Mm. Are there certain specific traditions attached to the eye that we might not know about?
Traditions, meaning in what way traditions? Like just practices, or?
Yeah, I guess. I mean, because I guess everybody does it a little bit different.
So much differently. Even as I can tell you, just among Italian culture, it is so different from region to region. I always say that the evil eye, it's sort of that common ground. Everyone understands it. You can be anywhere. In Italy, for example, everyone knows what malocchio is. But the ways in which it is going to be warded away are specific to a specific region, and then the ways in which you can diagnose the evil eye, cure the evil eye, they're all different. The prayers that are handed down are different. My grandmother, I grew up with my grandmother who lived downstairs, and my grandparents were from Italy. My parents were born in Italy and came here as teenagers, so we grew up in a home, my siblings and I, where we spoke Italian, and specifically the dialect of my mother's, town in Italy. And my grandmother, she's my maternal grandmother, used her bowl of water and her olive oil and the secret prayer, or the incantation, and then sort of reading, what showed up, and the olive oil, what showed up in the water after the olive oil was, dripped in there. Then there are people who take the plate and put it on someone's head and, to do, the diagnosis of the evil eye. There are strings that are used. For some, there are hand gestures that are used. This was also very big in my house. My grandfather was big on teaching us hand gestures, and it's very interesting. You can meet a lot of Italians and Italian Americans who will tell you that some of us walk around with our hands in our pockets, and we're making what's called the mano cornuta, which is our hands are just constantly in this horn. It's basically extending your index finger and your little finger, your pinky, out to form a horn, and that basically is what's, the horn is protective and it's warding away the evil eye. Even if someone's speaking, if you see an Italian with both hands in his pockets or above their pockets, you kind of know what's going on.
That's funny.
They're just keeping themselves safe.
I like that.
Yes, there are many, many practices like that.
Okay, and also talk about a little bit about some of the amulets and talisman that bear the evil eye, because I mean, and are they all always the white with the blue? I mean, do they? I mean, that's the one that people notice more.
The one that's the most common is called, many people, so I always say many people will say, oh, I'm putting on my evil eye jewelry, or I'm putting on my evil eye. And, okay, but actually you're not. You're putting on a nazar. And the nazar is what you see when you see the blue and the white, the dark blue, the aqua, sort of the light blue, the white, and the black dot in the middle that resembles an eye, like, from the, the iris, the sclera, the pupil, that kind of thing. But that, the evil eye symbol that is most commonly seen and used is in fact called the nazar. So that's an amulet that is probably the most popular one. That's, of course, Greece and Turkey, most popular there. The Hamsa is also a very, very popular amulet. And it sometimes the Hamsa, which is the hand, can have an eye in it, embedded in sort of the palm there as well. But not all, the Eye of Horus is also another one, but not all of the amulets are eyes. You have, in Italian culture, I mentioned the cornicello, I mentioned the monocornuto, but the cornicello is the little red horn. Many people say, oh, what's that red pepper? One of my favorite comedians, Sebastian Maniscalco, tells a story of how when he was a teenager, he, took his father's car, and went to pick up a girl on a date. And there, of course, hanging from the rearview mirror was a cornicello, a red horn. And, so if a girl got into the car and said, why is there a pepper hanging from your rearview mirror? And, in fact, that's called the cornicello. And many Italians wear it with the monocornuto, which is the horns made with the hands. Evil eye beads are not only of the blue and the white variety with the black dot. I give a list about what different colors mean, because you can get beads in different colors. So depending upon how specific you want your intention to be and how you want to ward away the evil eye, I've had many people come to me and say, everything's going okay in my life. Work is okay, health is okay, home, however, I got, I think I have some evil eye on me in terms of my love life, because that's going bad. And so, if you want to be specific, you can get, a specific colored evil eye. You can get a pink evil eye. If someone says, I think my business life is suffering, I think my career, you can get a bead that has purple in it. Purple is the color for that. You want to ward the evil eye for, your terms of abundance. You can get green. So turquoise, has a specific meaning. So I give those meanings as well for the beads. The beads aren't only specifically blue and white.
Okay, yeah.
Lots of others too.
Yeah, so you have a listing of the colors in the book. I mean, it's like candle magic. You need the colors, and
Correct.
Yeah.
And there are candles yes, candles are powerful, but colors are powerful. In my opinion, there's no such thing as a bad or a wrong color. The colors all have specific meanings, and I included that so that people can use the beads in a way that are specific to, if they want to, if people really look at it and they say, what, I really have had bad luck, and I think there's been a long evil eye in my career life. I can't seem to hold down a job. I can't seem to get the promotion. You can look and see which color bead is going to be specific to that, and that will be an amulet for you.
Yeah, I think that's really important to I mean, you can generalize. I mean, if you just want to ward off and just make sure that, nothing comes at you. But if you have a specific purpose, I think it is important to use the colors in any way. I think it makes it a little bit better. It
does. And the whole thing about the amulets, amulet magic is a wonderful thing because, you choose your amulet and you decide which amulet, sort of resonates with you. And that comes with responsibility. That comes with researching, with looking at its history, understanding it. And some people have come to me and have said, for whatever reason, the red seed, is what really, really called to me, or I felt a visceral connection to it. That's fine. That means the amulet is talking to you, and you're creating an energetic link with it. And that is what the amulets do. Amulets ward away, and and I do talk about in the book the differences sort of between amulets and talismans. But here, when they're warding away the evil eye, these are amulets. And there are many of them. The red string is also an amulet. I talk about saint metals. You don't necessarily have to be Catholic to use saint metals. I talk about the saints, a few of them specifically in the book. There's the Tuareg cross. I mean, there are so many. I had such a list to choose from because it's so much. And we're very, very lucky to have so many amulets to choose from. But I included as many there, as I could.
And you mentioned amulets and talismans. Some people might not know the difference. Do you want to give a quick explanation of that?
Sure. So in general, the terms are often used interchangeably, and that's okay. An amulet, though, in general, an amulet is used to ward away negative energy and, in terms of protection. A talisman is much more to attract. The talisman, so you think of a rabbit's foot, a talisman. I'm bringing good luck into my life. That's a talisman. A horseshoe, a talisman. You're attracting good luck. You think of Nazar that I mentioned previously, or the cornicello. That's going to be used as an amulet to ward away negativity. Mm-hmm. So one wards away, the amulet will ward away, the talisman generally will attract good luck. And some are different, the Eye of Horus, for example, the Ankh, for example. These are, if you're going to wear either of those, just as an example, that depends on your intention, because for many, they're going to say this is an amulet for protection, but the Ankh is also a symbol of life and prosperity. It can also be a talisman. And the same thing for the Eye of Horus. It depends on your intention there.
Got another question from the chat room. Besides the symbols, are there any particular stones or crystals that could help with evil eye spells?
I think in general, a quartz crystal for me has always been the most powerful. I have used the crystal to just as an amulet. I think when it's combined with another amulet, for me personally, I've worn the quartz crystal with my Hamsa. I think it helps, and I do think crystals, as sort of in their way conductors of energy for me, they can be very, very powerful amulets, and I do always encourage people to look at crystals, absolutely. And look at what just happened. We saw this just in, the last 2 days? I mean, there are so many stories about, Meghan Markle wearing the crystal that, sort of, brings peace, but also wards away or sort of, helps with protection and protecting the home life. She wore a crystal, and she had, also had been wearing her evil eye, a couple of years ago.
Are evil eyes sometimes made out of special crystals themselves?
The evil eyes are generally, when you see the Nazar, or the Nazar is generally can be made, they're usually glass beads. Some are made of ceramic. I have seen evil eyes etched into crystals, the symbol of the eye etched into the crystal. But in general, evil eyes are the glass beads that you see, or they're ceramic. Okay.
All right. Well, I think we're going to take a short break. I mean, an hour goes by really, really fast.
Very quickly.
And
oh my God.
Yeah, we're at half. It's
we're halfway.
Almost like the seventh inning stretch. So anyway, we're going to take the quick break. So everybody stay put, and we should be back in the blink of an eye.
There's more Stirring the Cauldron with Marla Brooks right after these important messages.
I was in the hospital with my son for 18 months.
When he got injured, I wasn't prepared, but I knew I had to be strong.
When I was told about John's injury, I was in complete shock. I just remember rushing into his room and giving him a big hug and letting him know I was there.
These veterans and families are just a few of the heroes we serve at Homes for Our Troops. For thousands of severely injured veterans, everyday life is filled with barriers.
It was really the little things throughout the house. Counters that you can't roll up to. I had to drag my wheelchair down steps.
I want to help, but he is so determined.
At Homes for Our Troops, we build specially adapted custom homes with features like wheelchair access, roll-in showers, and automatic door openers that allow them to function independently and focus on their recovery and family.
This house is freedom. It's hope. It's a new beginning.
This house has given me my family back.
To learn more, visit hfotusa.org.
Throughout time, events have occurred that have shaped human history. Spirit voices from the past have many stories to tell, and for the past several years, channelers Barry and Connie Strom have been conducting live channeling sessions and relaying those stories and messages from those on the other side. We invite you to tune in to Barry and Connie's new show, Channeling History, on the PowerX Radio Network, every Sunday night at 9 p.m. Eastern, as they relay the messages of those voices from the past, the ones who have witnessed history firsthand, and those who have made history themselves.
Hey everyone, it's Marla. If you like tonight's episode of Stirring the Cauldron and the archive podcast as well, take a look at the show's YouTube channel and check out the dozens of shows that are there just waiting to be heard. New shows are added each week, and while you're there, why not subscribe? It's free. And if you click on that tiny little bell icon at the top of the page, you'll be notified when new shows are available. Just go to youtube.com and then type in Stirring the Cauldron Para X and the link will appear. Just like magic.
Welcome back to Stirring the Cauldron. Once again, here's your host, Marla Brooks.
And my guest tonight is Anthony Pagliarulo, and we're talking about his book, The Evil Eye. Got another question in the chat room, or a comment in the chat room. I think she downloaded your book from Amazon. She said, many cultures with the evil eye. Do you have to match the culture to remove it?
I think perhaps she's talking about the methods that I have to remove in the book, The Evil Eye. No, you do not have to match the culture to remove it. I gave examples from many different cultures, and if there's a particular method that you prefer or that resonates with you, then you should explore that particular method. You do not have to specifically, look at the culture for the method. No, you should look at what resonates with you and which one you want to start with first. And I write about that in the beginning. I talk about reading through it first and seeing which one you want to, begin with. And some people will learn many different methods, just as they'll learn many different spells or incantations or prayers to remove the evil eye. So too will they learn many different methods.
Whatever they're comfortable with works, because you're putting in just as much intent for that as anything else. And
so you acknowledge, and of course, when you're looking at the cultures, you're going to, of course, you give your acknowledgement to that culture, and it leads you sometimes to. That's the wonderful thing about looking at things from different cultures. You're going to be led to researching more and exploring more into it. So that's the wonderful thing about having the examples that you can choose from.
Good. All right. So, I think curses are more powerful if somebody has been told that they have been cursed. And I know a lot of people say that, and then they start laughing. Well, we don't have to do the curse because we just scared the hell out of them by telling them that they are cursed. But if people don't believe in the evil eye, can it affect them anyway?
Yes, I do believe, and I'm going to tell you, I'm going to answer that, the first part with a story, a personal story, which is funny and interesting. For years, I worked at an organization, which shall remain nameless, but I was, let's just say, I've always been, the quote unquote, the witch, the paranormal one, who's there. And in my office, I had, as soon as you walked in, you could see I had my candles, I had my amulets, I had different things. And many people, my former coworkers, there were two in particular, who would literally, flat out make fun of me for it. Oh, it must be a ghost. Go call Antonia. How silly you are. This is ridiculous. You live your life this way. Or, lighting a candle for this, believing in that. And true story, okay? On two separate occasions, those two individuals, separate times, one came into my office, closed the door, sat down, and said, "Is it true that you know how to remove the evil eye? Because there's a curse on me." Okay. Fast forward a few months, the other person who completely didn't believe in anything, called me crazy to my face, told me everything. No, this is nonsense. This, came into my office, closed the door, sat down, and said, "Is it true that you know how to, diagnose, remove the evil eye? Because there's a curse on me and I need help." And I, helped. But before I did that, I reminded them, "Well, you didn't believe in this, did you?" I think many people who say they do, I think there are certainly people who don't believe, but I think the overwhelming majority of people, it's not that they don't believe, it's that they don't want to admit they believe. And so there's a big difference. But we're talking about energy that, as I said before, comes from within. It comes from the emotions of jealousy and envy and anger. Those are universal, and we all feel them. Okay, we have all felt those emotions. Whether or not you want to acknowledge it to yourself or not, we've all felt envy. We've all felt jealousy. We've all felt resentment and anger and greed or whatever it is. We've also all been on the receiving end of those emotions. We've all certainly felt that sugar-coated compliment that was really a sting underneath. We've all seen someone look at us, with that eye that's quite sharp, like little dagger coming through. We've heard people speak to us in certain ways where sometimes, as I always say, as you practice more and you learn more and you become more aware of the eye, your ear becomes a tool as well, because you can hear it also in someone's voice sometimes. But of course, it affects everyone, whether you believe in it or not. That's why it's so important, in my opinion. In the book, I talk about, I write about it and I mention it all the time. One of the main points of the book, not only to educate people about how to, diagnose the evil eye, cure it, how to, use amulets, but it's so that people become aware of it. Because so many times, so many people have come to me and still do and say, this is what's going on in my life. And 1, 2, 3, it's this went wrong, that went wrong, or this, I'm feeling this way, I'm feeling that way. There's no explanation for it. And if you can become aware of the evil eye as what it is, as energy, as negative energy, then you can begin to understand it. And there is, the basis for energy. We know what energy is. Energy does not go away. It can be, changed, it can be transformed, but it really never dies. So, yes, if you don't believe in the evil eye, that's okay. But you can still be hit by an evil eye.
All right. And I'm sitting here and I'm thinking, when you give the evil eye to someone, is there it sounds stupid, but is there like a squint, or is just, some people can talk with their eyes and they don't have to do anything. They don't have to explain it. But, you see, I guess maybe Hollywood is doing this too. Somebody's got an evil eye and they're squinting and they're, whatever. Is there one particular way, or it's just, you're sending it out your own way?
In fact, there is no particular way. Some people will be very, very clear about it. When they'll be deliberate and they'll be intentional about it. And some people will look at you and you can see rage in their eyes. You can see envy in their eyes. But when someone wants to learn, as I said, I have a chapter at the end in the book called How to Cast the Evil Eye. It's not so much about any movement of a squint or the lids. It really is about learning how to work with the emotions and the energy that you're going to then direct. And I go into it specifically in the book about the methods about how to go on and cast the evil eye. But it's not so much how someone casts it. You may, after you learn how to do it, if you choose to learn how to do it, you may end up being someone who feels more comfortable, or the need, to squint or to, widen your eyes instead for a moment because of the amount of energy that you're transmitting. But there is no specific way to do it. It's really every individual does that differently.
Well, if you do it long enough, it'll just come naturally. You won't even have to think about it. It'll just, there it goes.
There it goes. And I mentioned that in the book as well, about how as the more you practice that in terms of giving the more you practice it, yes, the easier it does become. And there's also the opposite side of that. The more you practice warding techniques, the faster that happens too.
I was going to mention
the warding of evil eye. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I was going to mention warding techniques because, the book, you explain the symptoms of an evil eye, and we'll probably get into that a little bit in a minute, but and how to get rid of it. But what can people do to protect themselves? I mean, okay, I wear a pentagram. Some people wear a St. Benedict medal or a St. Christopher medal or whatever. If you put an evil eye on with what you're wearing, will one cancel the other one or just help?
No, if you wear them together, you mean? Or
Yeah.
No, I can tell you if you've seen it, then it's funny. Earlier today, I actually did a video today on my TikTok where I was explaining the chapter, because I've gotten so many questions about the chapter on how to cast the evil eye. And I did a TikTok video and I was doing my daily putting on my amulets. And I let's just say I wear so many that many people tell me that I jingle when I'm walking down the hall or if I'm walking around. So I wear many amulets. They're my own sort of personal army. So no, they don't cancel each other out at all. What amulets you wear, those are your, each has its own way of warding, and each serves its own shielding sort of purpose, in my opinion. And there are ways to ward that have nothing to do necessarily with amulets. In the book, I talk about ways in which you can ward for children. It's very common, to tie a red string on a carriage. And you can affix the nazar hamsa to the stroller. A mother, many times it's a mother's saliva, licking her thumb and touching her child's forehead is a way to do that. In the home, if you can, what did I say? I write about weaving the image of an eye into, the carpet, or putting it or an image underneath a welcome mat, or so that it's right there, at the door. You can draw an image of the Eye of Horus right at the bottom of the doormat. Use in terms of herbs, there are bay leaves you can use. I often tell people that carry 2 bay leaves with you. If you think you're going to go out and you're going to go to an event, you're going to meet a lot of people, take 2 bay leaves with you. When you get home, you can burn them, or you can just stomp on them if you think the eye is there. Rosemary is used. So many different ways of warding. There are additional, warding techniques that come from, there's some interesting ones in Armenian practice. You scratch or pinch your butt immediately after receiving a compliment. You sneeze after sneezing. I think you give your you give your ear a tug. There's people swallow cloves of garlic to ward away the evil eye. Cars can be kept safe by hanging something. You mentioned the St. Christopher medal. That's very common, being hung from the rearview mirror. Rosemary sprigs, bound together with rue and a red yarn. These are all things that can be done.
And some of those are really familiar to us practitioners of the craft. Yeah. So it makes it really, really easy. All right. So, you've got spells and rituals in the book to protect and to enhance, the resistance against the evil eye. And then you have an evil eye pantry. So I think I'd like to talk a little bit about that. What is it, and what are some necessary items that need to go in there?
Well, I think of myself as keeping an evil eye pantry, and of course, it doesn't have to be an actual pantry. You can, you can keep it in a drawer if you have to. You can keep it wherever you need to keep it. For me, in my mind, I call it a pantry because there are certain things that, to me, are just necessary to have. You always want to have salt. You always want to have olive oil. You always want to have, basil. As I said before, bay leaves. You probably would like, candles are good. Cloves you want to have. Garlic. Lemon. This is, lemon, citrus is the magic of the sun and the moon, so you want that. Matches, because there are methods to ward away the evil eye with matches. These are just, then there's also string. I give techniques for cords knotting for the evil eye. Rue, of course, you want to keep in there. So I go through a list. It's pretty extensive of things that I think are important to have with you at all times. And your own pantry will develop based upon which methods you learn or you choose to learn in terms of diagnosing the eye, in terms of warding, and in terms of curing. All of those things will become very personal to the practitioner. And listen, there may be practitioners who decide that, they want to do more, diagnosing techniques that don't necessarily involve oil and water. There may be some that are just going to have in their pantry, candles and a bowl for water because they want to find out who gave them the evil eye. I have methods in the book about that. Who gave you the evil eye? You can find that out. So the pantry is my idea of how I, as a practitioner, keep things, in order, so to speak, for this type of magic. And I think for every practitioner or anyone who wants to learn it, it's going to be different. But the pantry is important because those are items that are going to really help you along in your journey to learning this kind of magic. And
someone in chat room said, will sage protect as well? Yeah, I would say that.
Well, yeah, of course. Sage, we know for a long time has long been, the smudging and the sage has long been used. So of course, I always tell people, when they're smudging or they're using sage, I always tell them to remember to keep the windows open or open a door. Yeah. A lot of times people don't open anything and they just start smudging, but no, the energy's got to go out somewhere. Yeah,
they're getting exterminated.
Yeah, and sage, yes, it's a wonderful, it's a technique that's been used for a very long time. But there are many, many others that you can use other than sage. And I think that's an important part too in the book, where I talk about some of the herbal remedies and also some of the woods that can be burned, for specific reasons. That's also very, very important.
Like Santo Palo?
There's, Palo Santo, there's also cedar.
Okay.
A lot of different woods can be burned.
Right. Okay. Explain some of the symptoms, because some people are going to, better know than not know.
So I talk about symptoms. There are physical manifestations of the evil eye, and you have to, the first thing I always say when someone calls me and says, I think I have the evil eye because I had a headache, or I really just feel tired, I don't feel well. My first question is, when did you eat? Are you hydrated? Those kinds of things. You want to make sure that those aren't your reasons for feeling a headache or for feeling listless or tired. But there are other physical way. There are other, manifestations. Bruising, I talk about eye twitches. If you are tripping or you fall, I don't mean tripping on something. I mean if you trip and you fall a lot. Growing up, that was a big symptom. There are days sometimes you say, oh my God, I just tripped for the fourth time, and sometimes you're going to fall. A very frightening episode is hair loss. People have reported hair loss. Headaches are, of course, very, very common. Then you get into things like insomnia, itching, lethargy is very common, pallor, things that come on very suddenly also. Psychological symptoms, if someone all of a sudden becomes very aggressive or there's aggression, that's not common. If you all of a sudden get panic attacks and you're anxious, that's not, common. You have to look at that. Feelings of desperation, nightmares, feelings of sadness that can't be explained, times when you just, sort of retreat into silence for no reason. Those are also dropping things. That was also a very big thing. Growing up, we always knew if you dropped something, you dropped your keys, okay, and then 2 hours later you dropped a glass, okay, and then, an hour later you dropped a plate. Well, something was going on there. So, that was a very big sign. And then you have to think of things with the home. There are symbols. Don't forget, look at a home. What are the windows are really the eyes of a home, okay? And I write about this, and I tell people to look at signs. Look at your windows. Do you see, something that is there a little crack there that wasn't there previously? And for no reason that's there, look at that. Those are things you have to look at. Then there are signs in nature. I talk about if you find yourself behind funeral processions, 2, 3 in a day, that's not common. At least not where I grew up. Bloody eggs, those were signs of the UTI. That happens. Specific, there are, for some people, it comes about in other ways, car trouble, the car trouble, the broken sink you had in 2 or 3 days, you lost your keys, the car broke down, you got a flat tire, a pipe burst in the basement. These are all signs that you have to be aware of. And that's why the evil eye is very insidious, because it can come in a way that you're not seeing immediately, and you're just going to say, oh, you know what? That's just my bad luck. But when you really think about it, okay, a flat tire. All right, you got a flat tire. Maybe that's your bad luck. But when the flat tire is followed by a fall and you've broken 3 glasses and you're having 3 days of headaches that are unexplained, when you have a spate of this kind of quote unquote bad luck, it's not bad luck. It's the evil eye.
And, you have also, you mentioned about how to get rid of the eye. And some things are very easy, like using smoke, right?
Smoking the eye away, sure.
How does that, what do they need? Any kind of smoke or what?
No, well, this is where I talk a lot about some of the herbal remedies you can use to smoke the eye away. Rue is used a lot there. The herbs and plants, basil, you take for relationship trouble. If your relationship is in trouble, you want to, burn basil in the bedroom. Bay leaves, garlic also is a, what do we call, garlic? It's a spice, it's an herb, I don't know. It's a vegetable. It's all those things. Lavender, you can also burn lavender when the eye is caused. Any kinds of, a specific type of physical ailment. Mint is very powerful. Rosemary, I'm a huge fan of rosemary. It's so many reasons. I burn rosemary a whole lot. To me, it's a very mystical herb, and I think I actually called it a mystical herb in the book. I often do that, when people, I actually prefer rosemary to sage. I prefer doing that much more. Syrian rue, very much used, and that's different than rue, different than the common rue. you can burn those things just as you would sage, but in the book I give you more specific reasons for doing that, and you can definitely smoke I always same as you can for the woods. Juniper, Palo Santo, pine. These are all ways that you can work. Sandalwood. You can work with all of them.
Mm-hmm. The book is full of stuff, really good stuff. I mean, it's so hard to even talk about a quarter of it or a sliver of it because it's really comprehensive and really good. One minor quick question. Have you ever been cursed by the eye?
Oh, sure. Yes, absolutely. I have felt cursed by the eye. And being someone who grew up with this kind of, folk magic as I did, I always say I think I was fortunate to grow up with the tradition of magic and the magic of tradition, this kind of folk tradition. Yes, I have. And because it's been so much a part of my life for so many years, I'm able to sort of recognize it a little bit more in terms of the signs in myself, physically especially. And I'm the first to run, to my kitchen counter. And I do prefer the method of the olive oil and the water. And that's my go-to method. I've used other methods when I don't have olive oil and water. I talk about that in the book. There's a way to diagnose the eye with tarot cards. So I have been many times, sometimes stronger than others. But fortunately, I have always, relied on the magic. I have relied on the diagnosing techniques that I've described in the book, and the prayers, the incantations, and of course the herbal remedies. So there's a whole plethora of things to work with. But I have certainly, and I know I will be in the future. And I tell people one thing when you're talking about amulets, and I always mention this. When an amulet, look at your amulet, okay? If your amulet breaks, don't get upset. Think of it in a different way. Your amulet breaks, that means the eye has taken the hit for you. So the amulet's working. The amulet you put on the wall, it fell, it cracked, it did whatever, means it's working. So think about that and I write about this in the book. There are many ways. Some are subtle, some are not, but there are ways to realize it's there, and you will become more proficient in those ways as you practice.
You've got so much information. It's good. You might have to come back.
It would be my pleasure.
We got
a great pleasure.
We need to have you give out a website or your social media platforms and where people can find you and your book.
Well, the book is available just about everywhere. It's available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble. It's available at all bookstores, magic shops. And you can find me online at AntonioPagliarulo.com. I know that's a lot, but you can also find me at ItalianWitch.com. Just the way it sounds, ItalianWitch.com. It's the same website. And social media, you can find me on Instagram, on Facebook. You can find me on Twitter. You can find me on TikTok. So I am there, and I invite you to reach out and find me. I love getting mail from my readers. I've gotten a whole lot since the book has come out, and I look forward to receiving more. Perfect.
Well, I want to thank you for joining us tonight, and come back sometime. We'll talk about that. And we need to thanks to the listeners as well. We are going, and until next time, everybody, blessed be, and merry meet again. Good night.
Thank you for tuning in to this episode of Stirring the Cauldron with Marla Brooks. Please join us again next week at the same time for another great guest and more cauldron stirring. Any rebroadcast or other use of this program without explicit permission is strictly prohibited. Copyright 2024. The Mysterioso March by Kevin MacLeod is licensed through Incompetech.com.